At 57, Victoria's eyes carried the weight of distant horizons, carved deep by years that younger operators dismissed as irrelevant. Her stride was measured but deliberate, each step revealing a precision that felt almost ceremonial amid the restless energy of the elite unit stationed there. The younger soldiers watched her with barely concealed amusement. What they saw was an aging officer, out of place among the cutting edge of special operations technology. The only thing noteworthy was the rifle case she carried, like it was part of her very being. Her paperwork listed a mundane title, Logistics Liaison. Her responsibilities, managing equipment inventories, signing manifests, ensuring bureaucratic compliance, invisible work in a place where visibility meant everything. The person who greeted her wasn't a commander, but a junior officer with a tablet, pointing toward a prefabricated structure set apart from the main barracks. No ceremony, no welcome. Her quarters were austere, steel walls, concrete floor, radiating cold indifference. Victoria unpacked with the same precision others had mocked uniforms folded with razor-sharp corners, a handful of worn books arranged with exact spacing. Finally, she laid the rifle case on the cot. Her fingers hesitated over the latches, then opened it with the reverence of someone handling something sacred. Inside, resting in custom foam, was no gleaming state-of-the-art rifle like the younger specialists carried. It was a heavily modified Accuracy International, decades old, rebuilt countless times with new barrels, reinforced stock, and precision optics carefully selected over years. To outsiders, it looked like a relic from bygone conflicts. To her, it was memory, discipline, and the only truth she trusted to endure. Beyond the walls, wind scoured the Firebase thunderhead, carrying a chill that hinted at challenges to come. The young soldiers still whispered and laughed. They didn't yet know that circumstances would soon force them to see the woman they dismissed for what she truly was. Victoria treated the rifle like a trusted companion, not with sentimentality, but with the quiet mechanics of touch, oil, and metal responding to skilled hands. The chassis was an old design reimagined with modern craft, a precision-matched barrel, adjustable stock, and European glass optics that gathered light with remarkable efficiency. She worked through each component with an economy of motion that suggested muscle memory older and steadier than the operators who whispered outside. Each part was cleaned, each screw checked, each adjustment given careful attention before being secured back into protective foam. Outside, Firebase Thunderhead operated on different values. Laughter echoed past corrugated walls. The younger precision specialists moved confidently with ballistic computers in one hand and energy drinks in the other. They traded achievements like currency, fastest qualification time, tightest grouping at extreme range, most impressive recorded performance. Staff Sergeant Marcus Drake embodied this new generation. At 31, carved from determination and confidence, he believed completely that technology and youth equaled superiority. He appeared in Victoria's doorway the next morning, wearing dismissal-like armor. "Major Kane," he said, the rank tasting like accusation. "Looks like your last decade was administrative. Not much field work from headquarters, right?" His eyes jabbed at the open case on her cot. "What is that? Museum piece?" Victoria didn't look up from her work. Her voice was low and even. "Modified Accuracy International, with custom barrel and precision optics, reliable under extreme conditions." Drake laughed without humor. "We're running high-tempo operations with integrated systems. My teams use ballistic computers that interface with rangefinders and optics, equipment worth more than most people's houses. We don't accommodate personnel who aren't current with modern doctrine." He gestured toward the supply depot, like pointing toward exile. "Your predecessor handled logistics. You'll do the same." Victoria accepted the assignment without protest. For a week, she embraced her designated role with grace that others mistook for resignation. She verified equipment inventories, logged serial numbers, and maintained supply records while the range outside echoed with training exercises. But she performed these tasks with unusual attention. Where others conducted cursory checks, Victoria examined details, running fingertips along container seals, checking for moisture intrusion, inspecting ammunition for subtle corrosion. "Humidity affects consistency," she told young Corporal Jake Harrison once, so quietly he had to lean closer. "Minor degradation changes impact at extended ranges." He watched how she said it like sharing essential knowledge rather than trivial information. It unsettled him more than any formal briefing from Drake. Her real work, the purpose she'd been unconsciously assigned by instinct rather than orders, began after paperwork was complete. From the supply depot's observation position, she had partial view of the long-distance training range. Alpha Team's technology glittered below advanced rifles on precision rests, premium optics catching sunlight, handheld weather meters blinking data to tablet displays. They input numbers into ballistic solvers and trusted the outputs with near-religious certainty. Victoria watched the terrain more than screens. Where computers saw stable conditions, she observed atmospheric distortions, heat waves rising from valleys that would bend trajectories like liquid glass. In pre-dawn hours, she would gather dust particles and release them into air, watching how they tumbled and drifted. Their movement told her more than columns of data on any screen. Corporal Harrison, observing these rituals, began folding them into his growing respect for the dismissed major. Then the mountain's atmospheric conditions began contradicting the technology. On screen, weather meters read one profile. Ballistic computers calculated another. Young operators argued over communications while re-entering numbers. Drake barked orders with the certainty of someone whose tools had rarely failed. Alpha Team lined up training shots, and tracers consistently missed by significant margins. Frustrated profanity rippled through communications with the rhythm of repeated failure. Victoria closed her hand around the depot railing, feeling cold metal there. She could hear beneath hissing radios a different rhythm, the canyon's subtle movements, wind patterns across ridges. She set down her inventory tablet and walked to where the view was unobstructed. Harrison followed, curiosity overriding caution. "You really think you can read conditions from here?" he asked, eyebrow raised. Victoria didn't answer with theory. She reached up, gathered dust between thumb and forefinger, and released it, watching how it twisted and rolled. Where particles caught and spun, showed where air currents would affect trajectories. Where they held steady, indicated lulls. Harrison saw the dust patterns and knew instantly that the person who dismissed her had never learned to truly observe. A tense voice crackled through communications intelligence, had detected a high-value target at a compound location, not on training maps. The tone shifted like changing tides. Drake went still with sudden focus. Young operators straightened. Someone struck a console in emphasis. Victoria felt the mountain's attention turn toward the same map coordinate. She felt old instincts arrange themselves in her awareness like familiar tools. She'd been assigned to manage supplies. The mountain had different plans. She turned toward headquarters, dust still on her fingers. For the first time, the dismissive laughter seemed to fade to a sharper edge. Something was developing in the valley below. And it wasn't just atmospheric conditions. They called it Devil's Canyon on operational maps, a harsh acknowledgement of terrain so complex that wind behaved unpredictably. From headquarters windows, it appeared as serrated lines of shadow and sunlight. On screens, a cluster of thermal signatures and a name, Khalid. To most in the room, it was mathematics, range, elevation, velocity vectors, data input into computers until they produced targeting solutions. To Victoria Kane, it was something entirely different. The canyon wasn't an equation. It was living terrain. It was atmospheric memory. It was how light bent when stone created optical illusions. Alpha Team was exceptional, as precise as any unit in theater. They moved into position on the south ridge, with advanced rifles on stabilized rests. Premium optics gleamed. Lasers measured target distances. Data fed into weather computers. Numbers populated ballistic calculators. A surveillance drone orbited above, its patient sensor sending everything back to Firebase Thunderhead. On paper, it was flawless. Except, it wasn't. Victoria had observed this pattern for weeks from her depot corner. Target located. Computer consulted. Shot. Attempted. The machines never lied about what they measured, but they ignored what they couldn't quantify. Atmospheric distortions boiling up from sun-heated valley floors, bending light like glass. Small dust spirals caught in gullies, changing wind direction for brief sections of a projectile's flight. Subtle betrayals written in the mountain's margins. She had learned to read those margins through solitary practice. Before dawn, she would fire test rounds at distant boulders, then study impact points, listening to how the mountain breathed. She didn't need tablets. She needed dust on her fingertips, air temperature against her skin, the rhythm of silence between wind gusts. Machines provided numbers. The mountain provided behavior. Both contained truth. Only one told the complete story. That morning, the story arrived with operational orders. Khalid, charismatic, dangerous, someone who transformed local grievances into organized threats, was inside a fortified compound in the canyon. Intelligence indicated he was preparing to relocate. Command wanted him neutralized before the opportunity vanished. Colonel Sarah Mitchell selected Alpha for the assignment. Drake briefed with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his equipment. Range to target, 1,850 meters. Wind patterns variable but within tolerance. Will identify optimal conditions and execute. Headquarters settled into familiar ritual. Voices dropped. Screens glowed. The surveillance drone held steady above the compound, an unblinking electronic eye. For 90 minutes, Alpha Team waited. Storm conditions intensified beyond predictions. Data fluctuated, fell, spiked repeatedly. Atmospheric distortions shimmered across video feeds. Ballistic computers began contradicting themselves every few seconds. Finally, Alpha's voice cut through static. We're in position with visual confirmation. Wind creating complex patterns. Solutions constantly changing. The operator's tone revealed strain from watching atmospheric conditions behave unpredictably in real time. Identify optimal window and execute, Drake commanded, as if confidence could force nature into compliance. The specialist fired. The shot went high and right, 2 feet from the doorway on screen. The courtyard erupted. Guards responded. Radios crackled. Khalid vanished inside a reinforced structure. The opportunity closed. Headquarters' focused atmosphere collapsed into frustrated disorder. Drake struck a console. For a moment, the room resembled a place where control had slipped away. Victoria stood. She didn't rush. She moved as if each step were calculated, like mechanisms clicking into alignment. She activated the communication system. Alpha, this is Major Kane. The room hushed. It wasn't her rank that stilled them. It was her tone, a voice too calm to dismiss. Position? She asked. South Ridge, bearing 340, the spotter replied. Her eyes traced canyon contour lines, following them like reading currents. She perceived what machines couldn't capture. The main valley was channeling wind downward, then reflecting it off cliff faces to create hidden updrafts. A rotational effect no sensor could accurately report. Major, Drake interrupted sharply. Stand down. You're not authorized for tactical operations. Colonel Mitchell raised a hand. Her eyes never left Victoria. Continue, Major. Victoria's voice remained even. Disregard computer solutions. This requires atmospheric reading. 3 strong gusts will occur. After the third, expect a lull lasting 4 to 5 seconds. During that lull, adjust 2.9 mils left. 0.35 mils high. Execute on my signal. The numbers landed like physical impact. At this range, 2.9 mils represented enormous correction, an adjustment that contradicted computer calculations. If she was wrong, Alpha would miss again. If Alpha missed again, Khalid would escape. Personnel could be endangered. She could face serious consequences. The silence that followed was heavy with doubt. The spotter finally whispered, Major, that's an extreme correction. Trust the reading, she said. No bravado, no pleading, just certainty. The surveillance drone shifted on screen. Khalid emerged again, dark jacket moving toward a vehicle. Guards clustered protectively. The specialist's reticle drifted far left of the doorway, appearing aimed at empty space. The spotter's voice tightened. First gust, second gust. The third gust tore through, rattling communications with its violence. Then silence. Hold, Victoria said, calm as stone. Mark, execute. The shot cracked across the feed. Dust erupted from the wall, exactly where she had predicted 2 feet left, 1 foot high. A moment later, Khalid collapsed. For several heartbeats, no one in headquarters breathed. Then, target neutralized. High-value target confirmed down. The words rippled through the room like seismic waves. Expressions shifted. Dismissal evaporated. In its place emerged something none of them wanted to acknowledge. Profound respect. Drake stood frozen. His world, once so orderly, had just been rewritten. His tools had failed. Hers had not. But the mountain doesn't celebrate victories. As Alpha confirmed success, and the surveillance drone orbited above, another tone entered communications. Intelligence flagged movement on an opposing ridge. A specialist counter-sniper. Someone responding to Khalid's elimination with different calculations. Zarif, the insurgent's phantom. 30 coalition casualties attributed to him. In the stone fissures, someone was already targeting back. Victoria's eyes closed, cataloging wind patterns one more time. Devil's Canyon had claimed 1 life today. It wasn't finished. The Firebase was fundamentally changed. 1 shot had transformed it. The impossible atmospheric reading Victoria Kane had provided in Devil's Canyon spread like wildfire through informal channels retold in common areas, whispered between patrols. Soldiers who once ignored her now showed deference. Major was no longer mere courtesy. It carried weight. Personnel began noticing details they'd never observed. How her attention lingered on terrain features as if already preparing for next challenges. How she could estimate temperature within a degree through observation alone. How she carried stillness like an asset, as if the mountain itself had taught her patience. Drake noticed most intensely. His identity, built on technological systems and precision doctrine, had been shaken by a single voice over communications calm and irrefutable. He reviewed mission recordings obsessively, searching for flaws in her corrections. There were none. Cross-referencing her adjustments with logged atmospheric shifts only confirmed what he already feared. She had read the canyon perfectly. It wasn't fortune. It wasn't chance. It was mastery. Anger at being surpassed drove him deeper. He accessed her service record, expecting routine assignments and unremarkable deployments. Instead, he found extensive redactions. Entire decades blank, obscured with classification weight, top secret designations, project references without context, commendations stripped of details. The file contained more classified blocks than information. For the first time, Drake felt something colder than anger settle in his awareness. This wasn't a forgotten officer relegated to obscurity. This was someone the system itself had deliberately buried. Not a relic, a legend intentionally erased. And legends attract danger. Khalid's elimination didn't suppress the insurgency. It ignited it. 2 days later, Alpha Team discovered what form retaliation took. They were repositioning when the first shot cracked through air. A communications specialist screamed, leg shattered. The team dove into sparse rocky terrain, pinned by precision fire they couldn't locate. 1,000 meters of barren stone offered minimal cover. Sniper. High velocity. No visual. Alpha's voice cut raggedly across communications. Headquarters erupted. Operators scrambled surveillance assets for angles, but each time a drone approached, rounds forced it away. Whoever was engaging knew how to blind their sensors. Colonel Mitchell's expression hardened. We can't send reinforcements until that threat is neutralized. Location? The answer came through intelligence channels, quiet and final. Zarif. The phantom of their concerns. More than 30 coalition casualties, each a lesson in patience and precision. He hadn't been deployed to hold territory. He'd been sent for vengeance. Drake threw every technological resource at the ridge. Thermal imaging, acoustic triangulation, signal analysis, nothing. Zarif shifted positions with surgical stealth, suppressors masking signatures, shadows erasing his outline. The machines couldn't find him. To Alpha, he was death in the rocks, waiting for mistakes. For the first time in his career, Drake's tools betrayed him. His team faced elimination within minutes, and all his precision technology was blind. Tension showed in his posture. Pride turned to desperation. He resisted the realization, initially issued new orders, attempted recalibrations, pushed additional sweeps. Each attempt returned empty. Shots cracked closer. Alpha's voices grew more strained with each report. Finally, resistance collapsed. He crossed the operations floor, every step heavy like approaching judgment. Victoria stood at the topographical display, hands relaxed at her sides, eyes distant. To others, it appeared she wasn't even present anymore, but already out on that ridge, listening, measuring, waiting. When Drake stopped before her, the silence was profound. His voice, stripped of arrogance, carried only urgency. We can't locate him. Alpha's pinned. They have maybe 30 minutes before darkness. After that, he swallowed. They won't survive the night. Can you help us? The words fell into operations like detonation. The person who had dismissed her, who had declared her obsolete, was asking for assistance. Victoria didn't answer immediately. Her head tilted as if listening to something no one else perceived, the frantic rhythm of Alpha's communications, the faint echo of fire rolling between canyon walls. Her breath released slowly. He's not invisible. You're observing incorrectly. The room focused completely. Her finger descended on the map, indicating a jagged ridge facing into failing light. There, she said. But her voice carried additional gravity, telling them truth. If Zarif was half the specialist they described, this wouldn't be elimination. It would be confrontation. The sharp crack of Zarif's rifle echoed, followed by low, rolling thunder of its wake. To most in headquarters, it was terror incarnate, an enemy unseen, untouchable, stripping away their control. To Victoria Kane, it was something else. She closed her eyes, listening not just for sound, but for rhythm, signature, the subtle pattern hidden within. Every specialist left one. Zarif's was no different. Drone 3, she said calmly. The feed shifted to high orbit perspective. Rock, shadow, void, to everyone else. To her, a narrative already half written. Her finger marked a fissure between boulders. There. He's constructed a hide. Limited field of fire on Alpha. Afternoon sun keeps him concealed. Drake's voice strained. Major, that's just shadow. Thermal imaging shows nothing. She turned, eyes carrying something ancient. Patience creates patterns. His equipment suggests limited mobility. The first report travels down canyon, but the echo climbs. And observe, a faint dust displacement, almost invisible, appeared on the feed. Concussion signature. He's fortified. A spider hole. The room shifted, not silence, not awe, just the raw, involuntary hush of people who realized she had mapped an enemy using dust, echoes, and patience. Coordinates transmitted. Counter-sniper teams repositioning. Before they reached positions, Drake's voice came low, reluctant yet hungry for understanding. Major, who trained you? Victoria was still. Then, no one you know, because I trained them. She paused. Once they called me Iron Ghost. The designation dropped like steel striking stone. Every soldier present had heard the stories, an operator too skilled to be real. A myth used to inspire and intimidate. And here she stood, physical and undeniable. The radio interrupted. Hunter 2, threat neutralized. Spider hole exactly where indicated. We would never have located it. Headquarters transformed in that instant. Not applause, not celebration, just a fundamental recalibration of understanding. Soldiers straightened unconsciously as Victoria walked toward the exit. Drake intercepted her, spine rigid. His salute wasn't to an officer. It was to a master. Dawn spread cleanly across Thunderhead Peaks. The storm had passed, sky washed, sharp and bright. Victoria stood on her private observation point, the place she had always gone alone. No rifle in her hands today, only a single spent casing from the counter-sniper's shot. She rolled it in her palm. Not as victory trophy, not as souvenir. Simply acknowledgement. Balance restored. For now. Footsteps behind her. Harrison. 2 steaming containers in his hands. Major, he said. Softer now. He offered one. Black, I assumed. Her smile was almost invisible, but present. She accepted it, fingers brushing his calloused by youth, hers by decades. They stood together, watching the valley wake. He wanted to ask everything. Iron Ghost, impossible shots, the instructor named Petrov, who once taught her that wind and shadow never deceived. But he didn't. Somehow, he understood the silence was the answer. Something transferred between them in that quiet. Not words, a legacy. For the first time since arrival, she was no longer a relic. She was the standard. And Harrison, once overconfident, now humbled, stood straighter beside her because of it. The sun climbed higher, spilling gold over ridges. Victoria Kane Iron Ghost remained calm and unbowed, not as phantom of forgotten conflicts, but as proof of something timeless, that mastery exists not in youth or machines, but in patience, discipline, and the quiet certainty of those who truly observe. Firebase Thunderhead never forgot the weak the mountain consumed its arrogance. Alpha survived, the threat was eliminated, Zarif their phantom erased by another, older one. In reports, she remained only Major Kane, her role reduced to documentation and classifications. But for those who witnessed it, truth lived in their understanding. They had seen the Iron Ghost. Harrison carried it forward months later, on a wind-scoured ridge. He paused before a shot. His ballistic computer displayed numbers. He ignored them, gathered dust, released it, listened just as she had taught. Legends don't retire. They don't vanish. They persist in those who observed, who listened, who learned. Victoria Kane returned from her observation point into the Firebase's rhythm. She requested nothing, claimed nothing, but she had left them with more than respect a lesson. True mastery doesn't announce itself. It whispers. Legends endure not through power, but through the standards they establish and the courage they inspire others to carry forward. Thanks for watching this incredible story of wisdom, precision, and timeless mastery. Hit that subscribe button for more epic military adventures, and let us know in the comments, what does true expertise mean to you? Remember, the greatest teachers don't just share knowledge, they transform how we see the world.